angles, and I'm just not really having a very good time of things here, especially with my one-handed. My one-handed's not really the most powerful thing ever, but it is, of course, not really used to deal massive damage. It's more used as a kind of survival tool. A rather troubling situation awaits us after this particular siege. Welcome back to our Sturgian Viking playthrough, and as you can see, the Britannians are deciding to surround us a little bit here. Now, bear in mind that if we do sustain a lot of casualties in this siege, then they will attack. Oh yes, they will attack. I have gotten the walls down. They have been pretty much prowling around us for a pretty significant amount of time, but they haven't seen fit to charge at us just yet, so I'm actually quite pleased about that. And so it's actually just dawned on me, really, that I should have waited until nighttime. That is a bit of a strategic failure on my part, but maybe it won't really matter as much as I think. Well, let's see what happens, shall we? Anyway, we're just going to be telling everyone to charge in here. I personally feel like charging in usually makes the most sense, because we can basically just pour in through the walls, as you can see right there, and it doesn't really matter about anything else. You basically just want to be full aggression in these kinds of situations. We can only hope that the garrison itself is going to be significantly weakened in general. And just look at this, they just allow us straight in here. They just allow us straight in. I'm actually kind of surprised that they allowed us to just walk in, and that's the reason, in my opinion, why charging in these situations is the only way to go, really. You don't really want to allow them to auto-delegate in these situations, because in the grand scheme of things, you really just want to get this. Oh yes, you just want to get them all in this particular area and just slice them. Just slice them and dice them. That's what we like to see. And, well, I think you can already tell from the combat strength meters at the top that we're actually doing a pretty decent job so far. Got to be a bit more careful with my axe. It's not a sword, as I apparently forget, because swords generally will do decent damage even if you hit with the middle or the lower part of the sword, whereas an axe is really not going to do that much. You got to hit with the head of the axe, of course. Okay, come on now. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go. That is what I'm talking about. I love the overheads with the axes. They are super fun, especially when you get a crush through as well. I love the crush through mechanic. It's always been a huge amount of fun to utilize in these kinds of situations, especially when you know someone is defending quite heavily, and then boom, all of a sudden you just have a crush through, and it feels very satisfying to break that person's block. But anyway, I'm hopeful that we're actually in their respawn zone, but I'm hopeful that in general this is going to be a relatively easy victory for us, although I don't really want Iceni to get murdered if at all possible, so we're just going to try and be a little bit cautious here, make sure that we don't get trapped in between the waves that continually appear. So I'm staying on the sort of outskirts of their sort of spawn area, as you can see. And, oh, are we actually? No, never mind. I actually thought we were getting potentially a little bit overwhelmed, but no. Seems fine. As long as I can continue dealing damage at least. Personally, I feel like that. I think I've touched upon this before in a previous episode, or maybe even in a previous series, but I personally feel like the impact... Oh, wow, that's a lot of enemies coming in here. That is a lot of enemies. Okay, yeah. But anyway, the impact that the player character has on the battle is significantly less in Bannerlord than it used to be in Warband. Because in Warband, if you were playing a mod, let's say Prophecy of Pendor or something like that, you're usually going to be extremely strong in that mod, just generally because the mod itself makes everything much harder. It makes all enemies much, much more dangerous than the base game, and so on. So when you're in a battle, usually in Prophecy of Pendor, in Warband, you're going to probably accrue, at least in the later game of things, you're probably going to get about 100 kills, if you're using a bow, of course. If you're not using a bow, then, well, I'm not sure why you're not using a bow, because Pendor has some of the best bow mechanics ever. At least I think so. I think they're really fun to use in that mod. But anyway, basically, you're going to have about 100 kills. In Bannerlord, you don't really do that much, because everything is much more difficult, in my opinion, at least when it comes to killing enemies. Because if you have a bow, which I think quite a few people will probably go for. I got 41 kills here, by the way. Anyway, if you have a bow, it's more than likely you're going to do some decent damage, and obviously it depends on if the enemy has a shield or not, but most of the time, the improved hitboxes are going to make a big difference to how effective those archer mechanics are going to turn out. But anyway, we took Dunglanis. There was over 1,200 units in the garrison here, and I am extremely pleased that we took pretty much no casualties whatsoever. Very, very pleased about that. And I'm also very pleased that we're going to be able to pretty much take all of the loot from here. Now, by the way, you know in the previous episode how we took another fief? Well, that's being taken back by the Battanians, by this army that is outside waiting for us right here. It was taken back. However, it was unfortunately given to Vipon. Yeah. It was given to Vipon before it was taken. And personally, I don't really like that decision. So I'm pretty happy that it actually got taken back, but we don't really have to worry about it, because obviously it's really not going to be a very big deal for me to take it back, even if I have to take it back off screen, because obviously we've already seen that particular siege map, and it shouldn't be a big deal. Anyway, let's vote for the owner of this. I'm gonna be, this is a much better choice. Okay, yeah, so this is much better in my opinion. So I was thinking maybe I should take it for myself, but I'm actually not going to do that. Probably going to give it to Vidar, and we'll just spend the 100 to gain massive relation increases with him. I mean, that's going to make a pretty big difference to us overall. But there we go. That is great. I think I'm probably going to be disbanding my army now. Disband the army, and we'll get everyone to come out here. Oh, look at that. Someone has actually formed another army right here, which is actually quite fantastic. And I'm thinking that we're probably going to go after these vassals. Yes, indeed we are. This is great. This is absolutely fantastic. Can they continue chasing with me? Yes. Perfect. All right. Let's do an auto-resolve right there. We did lose quite a few units, but we are now going to get these people taken prisoner, which is exactly what we want. Do we have any Sturgians here that I might be able to rescue? No. Doesn't seem like it. All right. So otherwise, we'll just take the loot. I have so much loot again. It's very difficult. Very difficult to offload it all. Well, should we say unload it all of it? And it's just terrible. Marketplaces really need more money. Anyway, increases your speed bonus while on foot. Okay. Or decreases your charge damage taken by 50%. Foot troops in your charge damage. Both of, in my opinion, both of these are not so good. I mean, you could kind of tell that. I'm going to go for the speed bonus, I think. I'd like to be more offensive here, and the charge damage that we take from horses is relatively negligible to begin with anyway, so it really doesn't make too much difference for us to do that. I recognize both of these guys, so I'm going to be executing both of them. Thank you very much. And then we're going to be moving back on over to Dunglanis. We're also going to see where Yashana goes, because she might indeed try to take something back, or indeed maybe engage one of those armies around here. I'm going to try and attack this guy if we can. There we go. Easy, easy. Very nice indeed. Ah, look who it is. I was actually attempting to take Care Ban Seth back. However, CALADOG has appeared out of nowhere, and we're going to be attacking him in a very quick second. I was actually wanting to just build some very quick battering ram and siege towers, and just basically go in straight up and see what we could do, because there's literally only about 150 people in there. So we're just going to be attacking him straight up right here. Really, really easy to have a nice auto-resolve, and that's the point. I have shown you the stats, by the way. I have shown you the stats of the Sturgians. And the Overhaul mod does not actually do anything that much to their stats, just tweaking things here or there, so it makes it a little bit more, shall we say, in keeping with the particular gear or the particular class type that they actually are. Because obviously, it could very well be that the Sturgian archers do not have bow skill, or they might have throwing weapon proficiency instead of something else, and so the Overhaul mod basically just switches things around. It actually doesn't make units significantly more powerful than the other kind of units that other factions also have access to. So I don't know. I think generally auto-resolving, by the way, is only going to be a thing that will work for you if you either have a significant combat advantage or you have a numbers advantage. It will never really work out, even if, now here's the thing, even if you have an overwhelming combat strength advantage, but the numbers of the opponent are outnumbering you significantly, that's never going to work, because I've done that in the past. Not in this series specifically, but in other series I've tried auto-resolves when the enemy has had 700 recruits or basically something similar to that effect, and I've had about 200, 250, but I've had really good units, and if you go up against both of those, it just doesn't work. Even though the combat strength is significantly more, it just doesn't give us the amount of lethality that we'd otherwise want. Anyway, CALADOG is going to be completely executed, thank you very much. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the auto-resolve function, because I think someone was having difficulties with their auto-resolves, and basically it's all about weighing up how good you think your units are going to be, because if you have a lot of high-tier units like I do, then it's more than likely that the enemy will not have a similar amount of units to combat yours, and that's what you gotta bear in mind. I think you were playing as Botania or something like that. So generally, Botania, I would definitely say that Botania is a bit of a what's actually going on here? What is this? What is this icon right here? What is that? That is some weird stuff right there. I have no idea. Okay. That is a very strange icon. I've never seen that icon ever before. But anyway, personally, for me, if you're playing as Botania, and I've played as Botania as well, if you'd like to check out that series, there's a playlist link in the description. Maybe it will help you out somehow. But whatever the case, playing as Botania, I'd highly recommend not auto-resolving unless you have overwhelming advantage. So unless you have like 300 and the enemy has 50 or something along those lines. And if you do that, it's going to be a certain victory. You're going to lose very few amounts of units. But the main problem with Botania is that their archers are the biggest thing. Botanian Fian champions, they are great. They are absolutely wonderful, wonderful units. Wait a minute, there we go. Fian champions, there we are. So these are the stats of the Fian champions, okay? So 260 in bows, 220 in two-handed, and 170 in athletics. Obviously, their bows are their main strong suit. So if you can get a whole bunch of these, you're going to be absolutely fine. I had a whole bunch of these in my Botanian series, and in general, they're quite hard to level up because they do tend to die quite often. But let me just show you. These are the units that I'm currently using in my army right now. All right, this is the majority unit that I have, and they are 280 in one-handed and two-handed. That's it. They obviously have some throwing weapon proficiency and athletics as well, but that is pretty much all. And you can see here that the jump from champions to Huskarls is significant, but the amount of experience required to level these guys up is pretty large. So let's compare these guys against someone else, and you can see here that the general workings of it is that it gives them 20 more proficiency, but that's it. 20 more proficiency from the Fian champion, and they are very difficult to level up, as you can no doubt tell. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels until they actually reach the top. But let's actually have a look. What else do we have? Banner Knights. We've got some Vlandian Banner Knights. We can take a look at those. Vlandian Banner Knights, they've got 260 in polearms, 200 riding, 220 in one-handed. Generally, this is actually not even going to show you the full picture of things either, because you got to bear in mind that armor also pays a big slice of the issue that, you know, people might have. And Battanian Fian champions are very lightly armored in comparison to heavy infantry, in my case, or Vlandian Banner Knights, or, you know, Khuzate heavy horse archers, and things like that. It really makes a huge difference. And look at this. Who do we have here? Oh, yes. Going to be killing him. And now here's the thing. The reason why I auto-resolve against this guy is because I know 100%, even if he has 147 units, I know because his faction is on the back foot, there's pretty much nothing he can do. Unless he's in a big army, unless he, I don't know. I mean, I've seen a bunch of Vlandians that have a lot of sharpshooters, and they are very difficult to deal with. So generally, I will do a manual battle against them, and most of the time, I'd recommend manual battles if you're playing as Battania. So anyway, as you can see right here, what does he have? What does he have? The composition is definitely needing to be analyzed here. That's also a small little tip that I may be able to impart to you. Always hold down Alt, mouse over, see what's going on with their army composition, because otherwise you never know what they're going to have. They might have 100 whatevers, you know, 100 whatever, you know, high tier unit the particular faction you're fighting might have. And in this case, I'm looking for Battanian Fian champions. They have 8. They have 8 Fian champions, which is really not even a big deal. That's actually, that might be pretty easy for us to deal with. And obviously, you got to take a look at how many low tier units they have as well. Because in the grand scheme of things, if you can take a look and see, oh, they have 150 recruits, or they have 100 recruits and then 150 low tier, you know, tier 2, tier 3 units, and that's what their army is mostly composed of, then even if they have 500 units and most of them are made up of such low tier stuff, you're really not going to have a very big problem at all, even if they have, you know, 20 or 30 high tier units. It's really not going to make any difference whatsoever. Look at this guy's weird banner. Look at that. I'm going to chase this guy down. I'm going to chase him down like no one's business, because he has that weird banner and I want to see exactly what he's all about. Who is this guy? This looks like a... Wait a minute. That's not their... Why is the banner changed? This is kind of weird. I guess it's because CALADOG has been killed. And I would assume that this is this guy's banner, but this is a bit weird. I really don't know. But anyway, we can auto-resolve against him as well, and we'll just take him prisoner. We're going to execute him straight up, because I actually want to see what's going on with the clan. I'm going to get this guy dead too. Alright, yeah, so we're just going to take the loot as well. Yeah, it's more loot. Yeah, I have so much influence as well. Have you noticed? I just gain more influence than I know what to do with, to be honest. Okay, so let me see. Anyone else that I want to give some influence to? This guy, I guess, a little bit. And maybe Yorig as well. I just have so much. It's basically impossible for me to get rid of it all, to be honest. Okay, so anyone else? These guys are all right, I guess. We can give Vipon a little bit as well if he wants to call for an army or something. Oh, there's Prindor. Oh, wait a minute. They're all splitting off. This is a bad idea for you, fellows. Oh, you have trapped yourselves. Yes, they trapped themselves heavily. Ah, now this is going to be a somewhat sticky situation, and this is definitely a time that I feel would be most advantageous for us to go in manually, because if we didn't go in manually here, we would more than likely suffer way too many casualties, or we might. I mean, that's the point. I don't know. If you don't know what the particular outcome of an auto-resolve is going to be, like absolutely 100% no, or have a somewhat positive guess about it, then it's recommended not to do it. That's what I learned in Bannerlord. Bannerlord. Ah, yes. That's what I learned in Bannerlord all those years ago. No, yes. I was certainly playing it all the way back in 2012, wasn't I? No, exactly. I'm talking about Warband. That's what I learned about in Warband, when the auto-resolve in Warband was basically the worst thing known to man, with the exception of if you had so many units that you'd be able to just go in there any old how and do massive damage. Now, obviously, do bear in mind that some of the time you could even auto-resolve in certain mods if you had significant power. And I'm talking about custom knighthood orders, you know, the absolute best units that you could possibly get in that particular playthrough. Those are the kinds of situations that you'd be able to auto-resolve in Warband. In Bannerlord, it's a little bit different. You can auto-resolve pretty much all the time, and you don't really have to worry too much about taking casualties, but you do have to, as I say, weigh it up. Just be careful. Just be careful. You never really want to auto-resolve every single battle. Like, for example, this one, I would have liked to have auto-resolved it because it would have made things much simpler and quicker for me, but I do want to try and reduce the amount of units that we might end up losing as a result of the auto-resolve. So we're going to try our very best to maximize our survival rates. And unfortunately, I'm not really doing very well here because most of the enemies are coming from weird angles, and I'm just not really having a very good time of things here, especially with my one-handed. My one-handed, it's not really the most powerful thing ever, but it is, of course, not really used to deal massive damage. It's more used as a kind of survival tool in close-quarter situations because it's just giving me something that I can fight against spearmen with, for example, that guy, and it's also giving me a faster weapon to deal with somewhat hard hitters on the enemy side, because there's no doubt going to be that guy that you never really want to fight with a two-handed, and he's going to beat you off the block every single time. He's basically just going to be like, okay, I've got a really fast weapon, I'm better than you in terms of weapon proficiency, and boom, he's going to kill you really, really fast. And that's the kind of weapon that we want to try and craft, or indeed acquire in some way or another, to maximize our effectiveness in those situations. Okay, so I think they actually lost 2 units just from the battle. I'm actually kind of surprised about that. I would not have expected them to lose so many units just from the battle, but I assume these guys have literally been battling and battling for so long that it is now just too much for them, and they're just giving up the ghost. They're just absolutely giving up the ghost. And I took one of them prisoner, was execute him, I recognize him, and then we can indeed just level up a couple of people, and we can move on. Where was Aaron, by the way? Didn't he, wasn't he in? Oh, there he is. Hello. Come back here, sir. I would love to meet you and separate something from your shoulders, thank you. Are you in here? Yes, he is in there. There we go. Yes, the AI is a little bit, I don't want to say silly, but they are a bit silly when it comes to exiting fiefs when the opponent is right outside. In Warband, they didn't really do that much. Usually what they'd do is they would pretty much just stay in the garrison, having a feast, having a grand old time for a pretty significant amount of time, usually at least a week or so, even if it's just a few days. Then the player is going to get impatient. The player is going to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to leave. And then, you know, the player inevitably ends up leaving, and then the AI can continue doing whatever it does best. And obviously, in this case, Bannerlord AI tends to be quite a bit more active, which is very good. That's the thing. I'm actually not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that, in general, maybe not the smartest idea for this guy to leave in such a manner, but he is actually escaping me when he gets in the trees, because of course the Botanians do have the ability to move through trees faster than I do, because obviously I started as Sturgians, so obviously I move faster in snow. So there's also that. Hopefully we're going to be able to catch up with him. I'm hoping that maybe there's going to be a vassal or something that... never mind, he made a mistake. He made a mistake, he's dead. There you go. Done. Alright, that's exactly what we wanted. And I'm right next to a town as well, so I can basically sell all of my loot, or sell most of my loot at the very least. And let's have a look. You are dead, sir. Thank you very much. And let's actually take a look at who owns... No, it's the same banner. That's a very strange thing. I've never seen that banner ever before. It's very weird. Anyway, let's take a look at the trade screen here. Hopefully they've got a good amount of cash in here. 24,000? Are you serious? Really? Just 24,000? Insanity. Insanity. I have no idea why there's only 24,000 in here. But anyway, this is what the current map looks like. Obviously, Careban Seth, I'm going to be taking that back very easily indeed. I mean, as we know, it's a very simple matter to take that back. Really nothing much to worry about. I know that someone actually did mention in the comments that it would be a pretty good idea for us to try and defend against the Khuzait, because they are actually encroaching on us quite heavily here. And yes, I absolutely 100% agree. I was basically just trying to run a little bit of interference, try and execute a couple of battalions to try and reduce their combat strength, maybe force them into some kind of truce, because we are going to need it. Look at this, we're still at war against all 7 of the enemy factions. It's crazy. I don't even know. But anyway, let's take a look at Britannia here. Yeah, 3,200. Azerai still doing great. Khuzait still doing great. Vlandia's not doing so well. Southern Empire is kind of middling at the moment. But yeah, that's going to be it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, then please leave a like. Otherwise, I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.